My wife's old camera had a memory card still inside. There was a hidden album, locked with a code. When I finally opened it, my vision went black. The last photo? A picture of her in bed, holding my best friend's hand. I sent it to every contact in her phone before walking out forever. I never imagined that a rainy Saturday in Seattle would unravel my entire life. That day, while cleaning out the garage to make space for new shelves, I stumbled upon my wife's old DSLR camera. It was buried under a pile of forgotten items, collecting dust. I picked it up, feeling a wave of nostalgia. She had been passionate about photography when we first met, capturing moments from our hikes around Mount Rainier and our early days with our dog, Max. But as the years passed, her camera had been set aside, much like other hobbies that faded into the background of our busy lives. Curious, I turned it on. To my surprise, the battery still had some charge. The screen illuminated, displaying the familiar interface. I began scrolling through the photos, each one a portal to the past. There were images of us laughing at Pike Place Market, sunsets over Puget Sound, and candid shots of family gatherings during the holidays. Each photo painted a picture of the life we had built together. As I continued, I noticed an album titled Private. It was locked with a passcode. My brow furrowed. We had always been open with each other, sharing our phones, emails, and social media accounts without hesitation. This hidden album felt out of place. That evening, as we sat on the couch watching television, I casually mentioned the camera. "I found your old DSLR today while cleaning the garage," I said, glancing at her. She looked up from her phone, a hint of surprise in her eyes. "Oh, I forgot all about that. Did it still work?" "Yeah," I nodded. I was looking through the photos. Brought back a lot of memories. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Those were good times. There was an album labeled Private. It's locked with a code. Do you remember what's in it? Her expression changed subtly, a flicker of something I couldn't quite place. "Oh, that? Just some old work stuff. Nothing important." I nodded, but a seed of doubt had been planted. That night, as she slept beside me, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The locked album gnawed at my thoughts. I knew it was an invasion of privacy, but the unease pushed me to act. I retrieved the camera and sat in the dim light of the living room, attempting to unlock the album. I tried the usual suspects: her birthday, our anniversary, even Max's adoption date. Each attempt was met with failure. Frustrated, I set the camera down and rubbed my temples. Then, a memory surfaced. She used to use the last 4 digits of her childhood phone number for various things. It was a long shot, but I decided to try. I entered the digits. The album opened. My heart pounded as I clicked on the first photo. It was a selfie of her in a cafe I didn't recognize, smiling at the camera. Innocent enough. I swiped to the next. She was at a park, laughing, her eyes sparkling in a way that used to make my heart skip a beat. But then, I noticed a detail that made my stomach churn: a man's arm draped over her shoulder, his face just out of frame. I continued through the photos, each one more damning than the last. There were pictures of her and this man at various locations around Seattle, restaurants, parks, even our favorite hiking trail. The intimacy between them was undeniable. They weren't just friends. Then, I reached the final photo. It was taken in our bedroom. She was lying in our bed, her hair tousled, a content smile on her face. Beside her, partially covered by the sheets, was my best friend, Mark. Their hands were intertwined. The room spun. I felt a wave of nausea and rushed to the bathroom, barely making it in time. I collapsed to the floor, my mind racing. Mark and I had been inseparable since college. We had navigated the challenges of adulthood together, stood as best men at each other's weddings, and shared countless memories. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have ever imagined. I spent the rest of the night on the couch, staring at the ceiling, replaying moments in my mind, searching for signs I had missed. The way they laughed a little too hard at each other's jokes, the lingering touches, the inside jokes I wasn't privy to. It all made sense now. Morning came, and with it, a cold clarity. I needed answers. She found me in the kitchen, nursing a cup of coffee, dark circles under my eyes. "Morning," she greeted, leaning in to kiss me. I turned away, setting the cup down. "We need to talk." Her brow furrowed. "What's wrong?" I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "I unlocked the private album on your camera." Her face went pale. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. "How long?" My voice was barely above a whisper. Tears welled up in her eyes. "It was a mistake." How long?" I repeated, more forcefully. "A few months," she admitted, her voice trembling. "It ended over a year ago. I didn't know how to tell you. I was ashamed." I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms. "With Mark? My best friend." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry. It didn't mean anything. I was feeling lost, and he was there. It was a terrible mistake." I laughed bitterly. "Didn't mean anything? You destroyed our marriage and my friendship for something that didn't mean anything?" She reached out, but I stepped back. "Please, let's talk about this. We can work through it." I shook my head. "I don't see how." I left the house, needing space to think. I wandered the streets of Seattle, the city feeling unfamiliar and cold. Memories of the two of them invaded my thoughts, each one a dagger to my heart. As the day turned to evening, a plan began to form. I couldn't let them get away with this betrayal. They needed to face the consequences of their actions. I returned home to find her sitting on the couch, eyes red and puffy. She looked up as I entered, hope flickering in her gaze. I need you to give me your phone, I said calmly. She hesitated. Why? I want to send those photos to Mark. He deserves to know that I know. She swallowed hard but handed over her phone. I quickly found his contact and sent the most incriminating photos. But it didn't feel like enough. I scrolled through her contacts, my anger fueling my actions. One by one, I sent the photos to everyone in her phone, friends, family, coworkers. They all deserved to know the truth. She realized what I was doing too late. No, please, stop. She lunged for the phone, but I stepped away. It's done, I said, tossing the phone onto the couch. We're done. I packed a bag, ignoring her pleas and sobs. As I stood at the door, I turned to face her one last time. I loved you, I said, my voice breaking. I loved you, I said, my voice breaking. But you killed that love. You buried it next to every lie you told. She didn't speak. She just stood there crying, arms hanging useless at her sides, like even she knew there was nothing she could say to fix this. I closed the door behind me and walked out into the cold Seattle night with nothing but a backpack, my wallet, and years of trust shattered like glass under my boots. I got in my car and drove. No direction. No destination. I didn't even turn on the radio. Just the sound of tires on wet pavement and my own breath echoing in my ears. My phone buzzed constantly. Calls. Texts. From her. From Mark. From mutual friends. I didn't answer a single one. By the time I stopped driving, it was almost midnight, and I was parked outside a Motel 6 somewhere off I-5. I paid in cash. I didn't want any trace. Didn't want her to know where I was. Didn't want anyone to know. The room was small, smelled like bleach and old cigarettes, but it was quiet. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall. It didn't feel real. None of it. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, numb. The next morning, I called into work and told them I needed some personal time. They were understanding. I had never taken a sick day in 5 years. I didn't say why. Didn't give them a story. Just needed time. 2 days later, I decided to check in on the fallout. I opened Facebook. Her profile was chaos. Comments everywhere. People tagging her, messaging her, some defending, some attacking. Mark's wife, or Rachel, had posted a single sentence. Thank you to whoever finally showed me the truth. I felt a mix of guilt and relief. She deserved to know. But that wasn't the twist. The twist came later that night when I got a message from Rachel. Can we talk? At first, I ignored it. But then she sent another. It's about Mark. You deserve to know something too. That made me pause. I didn't want more pain. Didn't think I could take another hit. But curiosity and anger burned hotter than fear. I replied. We met at a coffee shop in Tacoma, both of us looking like we hadn't slept in days. She looked drained, holding a travel mug like it was the only thing anchoring her. I'm sorry you found out like that, I said. She shook her head. No, I'm thankful. I had my suspicions. Just didn't want to believe them. I nodded, and for a minute, neither of us spoke. Then she looked up and said something I'll never forget. Mark's done this before. My stomach tightened. What do you mean? I found photos 2 years ago. A different woman. I confronted him. He swore it was a one-time mistake, said it was over. I wanted to believe him. We had 2 kids. I let it go. I leaned back, processing that. But here's the thing, she said, lowering her voice. It wasn't just your wife. There were others. At least 3 I've confirmed. One of them was your sister-in-law. I blinked. What? She pulled out her phone and showed me a picture. It was blurry, but clear enough. Mark, kissing my wife's sister in the parking lot of a bar. Time stamped from 9 months ago. My mouth went dry. I had thought the betrayal ended with my wife. I had thought the storm was already over. But Mark was a different kind of monster. A long-time liar. A walking disaster. And I realized something. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was war. And I wasn't finished. I left the coffee shop with Rachel's words still rattling in my head like loose change in a tin can. Mark had cheated with my wife. With Rachel. With my wife's sister. That was 3 women I knew of now. 3 that he had wormed his way into while pretending to be this loyal, funny, harmless Uncle Mark. I sat in my car, engine off, hands on the wheel, heart racing. The man had been in my house. At my wedding. Holding my baby. He was in our family photos. Rachel had gone silent, staring into her coffee like it held all the answers. When I finally looked up and asked if she had more, she nodded slowly. There's something else, she said. One of the women he was with. She was underage at the time. Barely 17. Everything in me went cold. You sure? She nodded again, firmer this time. She was my cousin's friend. She told me after I posted the photos. Said she didn't want to come forward alone. She thought no one would believe her. I couldn't wrap my head around it. This man, this friend of mine, wasn't just a liar. He was a predator. I asked her if the girl would talk to me. Not because I didn't believe her, but because I needed to hear it for myself. I needed to look in the face of the damage and decide what came next. 2 days later, I met her. Her name was Kayla. She was 20 now. Shy, quiet, kept looking at the ground like eye contact burned. She told me everything. How she'd met Mark at a barbecue Rachel hosted. How he made her feel special, grown up. How it all started after he offered to drive her home safely. How it got worse from there. She showed me texts, pictures. It was real. I felt sick. I thanked her, told her she was brave, and that none of it was her fault. She nodded, but I could tell it didn't sink in. When I left that meeting, I sat in the car for nearly an hour. This wasn't a cheating scandal anymore. This wasn't a revenge story about a broken marriage. This was criminal. I didn't want to be the guy who aired everything online. I didn't want this to become another messy Facebook fight, but I couldn't stay quiet. So I started building a folder. Screenshots, dates, names, messages. I gathered everything. Every woman Rachel and I could find. Each had a story. Each had a scar. Some wanted nothing to do with it. Others begged us to do something. We did. We took it to the police. They opened an investigation. Quietly. Carefully. I gave them everything. I gave them my wife's camera too. They thanked me. Told me to stay quiet for now. Not interfere. But they also told me the case was serious. That it might take time. In the meantime, I couldn't go back to my old life. So I didn't. I found a cheap apartment outside of Tacoma. I worked remote. I started therapy. I started running. Not for fitness. Just to feel something different than rage. Then, 2 weeks into my quiet exile, I got an email. No subject line. No name. Just one sentence. You don't know everything. Attached was a photo. Mark. Sitting across a table from someone. It was my wife. And beside her, to my complete disbelief, my older brother, Dean. I zoomed in, hoping my eyes were wrong. But no, it was him. The guy who stood next to me when I signed my mortgage. The one who coached my kids' soccer team last year. The one who told me I was too soft, but always too loyal for my own good. Now he was sitting there, sharing drinks with the two people who burned my life to the ground. I didn't know what they were plotting. I didn't know who took the photo. But now I had a bigger problem. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. This was a setup, and I had no idea how deep it went. I stared at the photo for a long time. Mark, my wife, and my brother Dean, sitting in some dim restaurant booth, drinks in hand, mid-laugh. Like none of this had ever happened. Like I was the fool on the outside looking in, while they were all in on some cruel joke. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I made a decision. I needed answers, and I wasn't going to wait for someone else to give them to me. I called Rachel. She was stunned. Dean? Are you serious? Dead serious, I said. Together, we dug into Dean's recent activities. Nothing suspicious on the surface, same job, same routine, still posting dad jokes on Facebook. But then Rachel reached out to one of her friends who worked at a bar downtown. She sent over CCTV footage from the week before. There they were again. Mark, my wife, Dean, meeting in secret. We made a plan. Rachel organized a family dinner under the guise of wanting to reconnect. Everyone was invited. My wife, Dean, Mark, even my wife's sister. Rachel told them it was time to move on. Time to talk things out. It was all a setup. We met at a local Italian place in Tacoma. Cozy, low lights, small enough to control. Everyone showed up. Mark walked in first, smug as ever, acting like nothing had happened. My wife followed, clearly nervous but dressed like she wanted to impress. Dean came last, smiling, like the guy who used to fix my bike when we were kids. We sat down. The small talk was fake. My heart beat like a war drum. Then Rachel nodded at me. I pulled out my phone and set it on the table. I tapped play. The screen lit up with the CCTV video. No sound, just visuals. Of the meeting. Talking. Dean handing Mark something across the table. Everyone froze. My wife's mouth opened slightly. Mark blinked. Dean's smile vanished. What is this? Dean asked. You tell me, I said. What were you planning? Dean shifted. Nothing. Just dinner. 3 dinners in 3 weeks? After everything that's happened. I looked at my wife. You too. She looked away. Mark finally spoke. We thought it was time to move on. To handle things like adults. I turned to him. You preyed on a teenager, Mark. Moving on isn't an option. Dean stood up. Okay, this is ridiculous. We're not criminals. Rachel pulled out her phone. Actually, the cops might disagree. Everyone looked at her. I filed a report. So did Kayla. And a few others. They're building a case. Quietly. But it's happening. My wife gasped. Mark's face turned red. You set us up, he hissed. No, I said. You set me up. You slept with my wife. You betrayed every ounce of trust one ever gave you. And Dean, I looked at my brother, voice shaking. You knew. You knew, and you helped them. Why? Dean looked cornered. Then, he laughed. A dry, bitter sound. You always had the perfect life, you know that? The good job, the pretty wife, the dog, the house. Mom and Dad loved you more. You never failed at anything. I just stared. You think I wanted to be involved? I tried to warn you, but you never listened. So yeah, I helped them. Not because I wanted to, but because you needed to be brought down to earth. My wife reached across the table. Please, this isn't helping, don't, I snapped. Don't touch me. Don't speak to me. She pulled her hand back like it was burned. Then the manager came over, asking if everything was all right. I stood up. Yeah, we're just leaving. Rachel and I walked out together, leaving them sitting there. Silent. Ashamed. Caught. Mark was arrested a few weeks later. Turns out Kayla's evidence, paired with other victims, was more than enough. His wife filed for divorce. His kids don't speak to him. My wife tried calling, begging. She even sent a letter, saying she'd been manipulated, that she still loved me. I sent it back unopened. Dean? He lost his job when word got around. Some quiet mutual friends cut ties. Mom called me crying when she found out everything. Said she never imagined her boys would end up like this. I told her neither did I. I'm still in that small apartment outside Tacoma. Still figuring things out. Rachel and I keep in touch. We're not a thing, just two people who survived the same storm. Sometimes I miss what I had. Not her. But the illusion. The comfort. The normal. But I also know this. If I hadn't found that camera, I'd still be living a lie. I'd still be calling a predator my best friend. Still hugging a brother who envied me more than he loved me. Still sharing a bed with someone who never respected me. Now, I wake up alone. But I wake up clean. I learned that betrayal doesn't always come with warning signs. Sometimes it's hidden in smiles, in shared meals, in years of memories. But once you see it, you can never unsee it. And sometimes, that's the beginning of freedom.